They broke Poland's borders. They killed NATO citizens. They obviously violated. This is an obvious. This is a situation where Article 5 could unironically be called. We need to stand strong, I think is going to be more of the message sent.
Do you think they will do it in a way that that recognizes Biden as the leader of NATO? And
9/11 is always just going to be so special because, like, the United States.
And you could say that, and it's like a pretty story, but it's also not true. A lot of Americans liked racism. That stuff was like cocaine to them.
Oh, Dylan.
Hey, I'm here to tell you that all Russians are fascist, like all of them.
Oh my God.
Generally, and I hate that you're not standing up for Russophobes everywhere.
Based.
Thank God. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I still wanted to talk to you about the nuke thing, but did you get the news from Poland? Did you see that shit?
Yeah, pretty spooky.
That is pretty spooky, and it kind of aligns with my general idea about this war, which is the biggest threat for the use of these type of like atomic weapons isn't from Russia deliberately doing it, but it's just from their general incompetence, just generally just being incompetent and doing stuff on accident. And
I mean, civilian planes and shit have gotten shot down before, so I mean,
yeah, I think just generally
it is spooky though. Anytime, like, yeah,
100%. Hey, Lycan.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I don't know how to do it because this Poland news is so weird. I mean, like, it seems like the looks like Duda, who's like, you know, the leader of Poland, he's calling like a security meeting. I have no clue how they're gonna respond. If 2 people are dead, as the reports are, that like 2 Polish people just got killed by a Russian missile, like this is massive, and there's no precedent for this actually, and I don't know what's gonna happen. And it's, you know, Poland's always like the meme, like, you know, you can mess with anyone, just don't mess with the Polish. They won't hit Article 5 more than anyone. So it's, I really don't, I have no clue what's going to happen because I don't think there's a precedent for what's supposed to happen here. I think it really just depends on like what the Poles are going to do in response to this.
Well, what we don't want is them to escalate in any way or hit
but you know that's what they want. You know that's what they want.
It is, but it's really fucking bad if they do. I missed a lot of what the guy that just came on said, but one of the biggest things is that we don't want a damaged Russia with an angry people and with someone like Putin or worse. Like, because one of the hopes is that Putin fucks himself so much he's gone and he's out, and that he's replaced with someone that's a little more Western friendly, and that the Western people don't have this super anti-Russia sentiment, understand that a lot of that shit came from Putin and a lot of the people in the upper echelons of the Russian government, and that we don't escalate tensions and that we work with them when we try to, you know, come in and do the help we should have done earlier in the 90s.
Okay, so I disagree with this framing a little bit, and maybe it's just my Banderite self kicking into action, right? Maybe I like Stefan Bandera too much. But the thing is, I like, you know, when you look at the United States, they're in segregation. Like, somebody as a foreign person could be like, oh, well, you know, I think the majority of Americans, you know, they don't like segregation. They don't like racism. They don't like these things. And it's actually the government that's doing it, right? And you could say that, and it's like a pretty story, but it's also not true. A lot of Americans liked racism. That stuff was like cocaine to them, right? A lot of Americans love segregation. There were protests for segregation. And while I will say I don't think the majority of Russians are like Alexander Dugin, right? Or Igor Girkin and are like these psychopaths, but I do think that there is a pro-war base in Russia that has stayed by Putin, a Muscovite middle class that has stayed by the war enough, and I think that's something we need to address because it's something we need to deal with once the war is over.
Yeah, but when we say address, like, address how?
Like, I think I don't think we need to like do like denazification in Nazi Germany, but if we don't acknowledge the problem, like, I'm not giving like a prescriptive like, oh, this is how we have to deal with it, but if we're going to deal with it, we have to at least acknowledge it, right? Like, we're gonna acknowledge American racism. We can't just ignore it and pretend it's not there. We need to acknowledge it to deal with it. Like, I don't know how to deal with all racism. I don't have the answer.
Yeah,
to that.
sure, I understand, but I mean, it's understandable that Russia and Russians in particular probably have a pretty adversarial stance towards the West. Like, there's no love lost there, right? Like, that shouldn't be too surprising to anybody, I would imagine.
Yeah, but I guess for me, when we look at the type of Russian state propaganda that's being pumped out, I think this idea that Ukraine is a satanic nation It is a fascist nation. We have Dmitry Medvedev saying that Ukrainian identity is a disease of the mind. We have the denial of the Ukrainian state or the right to exist, the denial of the Ukrainian language as a distinct language that is just some dumb break-off that doesn't really deserve to exist. After knowing, like, historically, the Russian Empire has banned the Russian language. We see, like, all this crazy-ass propaganda being pumped out. And, like, an open admission to, like, participation in war crimes and I mean, like, we saw this one video come out from the Wagner Group recently, where a Wagner Group soldier's head was, like, placed on a brick and was smashed in by a hammer by another Wagner Group soldier because he dared to surrender to the Ukrainian army. And then the leader of the Wagner Group bragged about it after being asked about it in a Q&A. He bragged about it 24 hours later when they started getting too much heat. They then just blamed it on the CIA. This is, if you give them the opportunity to endorse war crimes, to endorse these horrific acts, they will 100% do it. And they wouldn't be doing it if there wasn't people in Russia who are receptive to that message. And there are. There absolutely are.
There absolutely are. It's a twofold problem. One, you need a replacement for Putin that's going to be popular enough to help quell those sentiments within that country. And you need a West that's not going to be antagonistic and give a reason for those sentiments to continue to be stoked. Granted, one of our biggest fucking issues is having Russia with this warped sense of what's antagonism when they continue to do things that justify NATO expansion, for instance, right? Like, there's a good reason that a lot of countries want to get involved in that. So it's a quagmire. It's a very difficult situation with issues both outside and internal to Russia. But I'm hugely against, like, capitulating to Russia just because they have nukes. Like, at the end of the day, we've let them get away with that for far too long, and that thought alone drove too many bad policies when it came to, you know, the reform of the Soviet Union and the different, you know, civil rights and human rights violations Russia has committed in the last 30 years.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we don't, like, get this idea that it's just like, if we get rid of Putin and these oligarchs and, like, this sickness that is this, like, hardcore Russian nationalism is just gonna, like, magically go away because it was just the mean leaders leading Russia into this, and there wasn't like a base of support for it. Because there really absolutely is.
There is, but I feel like Putin, the more authoritarian the regime, the more the leader can dictate the thoughts of the people too, though. No, like.
Bro, I mean, like, the leaders can manipulate the people into those thoughts, but like this his position, like, when he writes these essays, and this is something I get in arguments with people about. A lot of people think, like, oh, Putin's not like an ideological man. He's just an oligarch. He's just like a thug. No, he believes, he has an ideology, and fundamental to the things he believes is that Ukraine isn't really a real state. You know, these are people who have kind of strayed away from Russia. These are Russians. They speak this funny language that isn't really real, and it was one of the mistakes made by the Soviets to create the Ukrainian state, and that the handing over of Crimea was a mistake under Khrushchev. Like, all of these things were mistakes that need to be remedied in some way. And I think he could ignore his historical viewpoint on this as long as the leaders of Ukraine were beneficial to him, as long as they were largely subservient to him. The same way he ignores the fact that he believes Belarus should be Russian territory, but Lukashenko is pro-Russian enough that he was able to ignore it. That's why Lukashenko has done his historical balancing act. And so once this break has been made, like, that violated his ideology and what he considers his national security interests. And so then he was like, you know, he invaded Crimea, he started supporting rebels in the Donbass to shut down civilian airliners, and eventually we have today's invasion. But that ideology that he was talking about, that he wrote about in his essays, that he made speeches about, that is a real thing amongst not only Russia's elite, but is also a real thing amongst a lot of hardcore nationalist Russians. I mean, there's a reason why they've been able to continue supporting these rebels for years. It's because a lot of hardcore nationalist Russians have picked up arms and went to Ukraine and fought. Whether you talk about I
agree with you to some extent that all of these are problems, but it seems like the mobilization of Russians was not that popular. So I feel like there's not like this, like, you're going to have some percentage of the population that's always going to fervently support whatever your country does. But I don't know if there's like this huge widespread support in Russia.
I don't think there is. But we have to acknowledge that there's enough support that's why the war is going and continue to going on.
To some extent, yeah. If it was a deeply unpopular thing, Putin wouldn't do it, right?
Yeah,
probably. Yeah, like
I think it's going to get more and more unpopular as time goes on because they're realizing exactly what the cost is of this struggle to try to, I don't know, unite the Russian peoples or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I just want to, like, push back on the idea that, like, this is like Putin's war, because I think if we define this historically as Putin's war, then we're not going to deal with the problems that led to it.
Sure. Well, do you think we're going to war?
I think we're going to war. Probably not. No, I think
it's going to be water under the bridge. It's going to be awkward, but they'll pay some reparation bullshit. But there's no way. Although it is funny, I wonder how many lefties are now blaming the United States sending military equipment to Ukraine. Like that's the reason why
they're going to blame this. Yep. They're going to blame this. Yeah. Of course, because Russia can do no wrong. Everything is the fault of the United States.
Yeah, zero agency, treated like an absolute fucking child. Yeah,
we're all children. I honestly don't know what he's gonna do in response. I mean, he obviously can't do nothing. That would make him look weak. He has to do something. I don't know if it's gonna be like a larger aid package. I think they still have some stuff. Like Poland, I think Poland has really like largely emptied their stockpiles for Ukraine. I don't know what else they could really send them. I don't know what else they would do. I mean, I doubt they would send their own missile back. Actually, you know what? If it was any other country, I would say they wouldn't do that. But considering it's Poland, who knows? But I really don't know what they're gonna do.
Pretty wacky world out there, huh?
Pretty wacky world.
What was the other question you had for me?
I have two. One's like a can of worms though, and I don't know if I should ask you.
Yeah, go for it. We're at the start of our stream. Nothing's going on yet.
What do you think of this LonerBox situation?
Is he having trans fights now, or?
So the trans fights. He had a debate with somebody by the name of like Polly about whether a trans genocide is currently going on in the United States.
I heard that, and then I heard that because he disagreed that like a whole bunch of trans YouTubers are getting together to try to like cancel him because he's not acknowledging like the trans genocide.
He said no, and he gave his reason as to why it's not.
Big mistake.
And then he had like another like there's a lot of like questions about it. Was he too disrespectful towards Polly in that debate? They then had like a second conversation where he was a lot more polite, but he still like held by his position. Then President Sunday wanted to debate him, right? And President Sunday, in an effort to debate him, got like a research team behind him, and like of like 5 or 6 people or something to like build up like a good case as to why like a trans genocide is going on and why he was disrespectful towards creators. And LonerBox just like basically dropped out of it. It was like, I'm not interested in this anymore. I don't think people are being good faith to me. I don't want to do this anymore. So there's a lot of people like calling him like, oh, like you're a coward, like you dropped out last second, and you throw all your trans community under the bus is the thing I'm seeing most consistently by the way you're conducting yourself. You're too much of a coward to confront people. That's the, I think, most nonpartisan way I could put the situation.
Gotcha. Well, what's he doing? What's the next stage of his plan?
As far as I know, he's doing nothing. He's just completely dropped it. He doesn't want to talk about it at all. I think conversations about it actually is banned in his Twitch chat server.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's complete. He's pulled up the city gates during the siege.
Well, damn.
Damn indeed. The other thing I wanted to ask you was about what I tried to bring up yesterday, but you were like, Abba, sorry, you cannot have political conversation. This is banned. And so it's about like this idea of like nuclear Armageddon. I largely believe that Russia using a weapon of mass destruction is like not only extremely unlikely, but is so unbeneficial to their like grander strategy that they would probably, if they ever did it, it would only be on accident.
Yeah, I feel like that would be like a maximum unhinged moment because it obviously doesn't serve them well, right?
And so I think that a lot of the things that the Biden administration is holding back on, particularly longer range weapons, because they're fearful that like, what if Ukraine uses this in a way that would be provocative? I think we should do our best to like make them not do anything like super provocative. But I think the best thing we can do to get rid of the situation is give them the tools necessary to end the conflict as soon as possible, to not drag it out so we have like insane situations where the Russians accidentally bomb Poland and kill people happen. And so we should like give them the weapons that the Biden administration has been like holding back on.
I don't know about that. Rumi, did you have something particular about this you wanted to say, or what's up?
Well, yeah, I had a question because we're one seat away from the Republicans controlling the House of Representatives. They're at 217. The votes are still counting.
Could be wrong, but I think that, like, isn't that almost foregone at this point?
It's basically a statistical improbability that Democrats can make a way to a House majority. But I guess my question was for Dylan and for you. So, we know that there's enormous bipartisan support domestically for the United States to financially support Ukraine and provide, assets. But Republicans seem to be more reluctant to have like unconditional aid, and I don't know if that's if that's because they genuinely don't care, or because Biden's the sitting president, and so they want to put a little asterisk and conditions on the support that they would offer Ukraine. But if Republicans take the House, they don't have the Senate. Mm-hmm. But I wonder how this calculus will change, their ongoing support for Ukraine and for Biden's agenda for Ukraine, if they think that, this will trigger some sort of military conflict with Russia. Do you think House Republicans are basically going to tell Biden, no, we're done, we're tapping out? Or do you think they're going to push him to be much more aggressive in response now that, 2 Poles have been killed?
I don't, especially with Polish people getting killed, I personally don't see Republicans pulling their support from Ukraine as long as it's still broadly popular in the U.S., but I don't know if Dylan thinks differently.
I think I've seen a lot of people really scared that a Republican House majority could pull support for Ukraine, and a lot of this is based off of comments of Marjorie Taylor Greene and hardcore radicals that don't have a lot of support and aren't even that well liked within the Republican Party. There's a few senators, I think Tom Cotton, but the vast majority of support is still for Ukraine. I think the one statement that did scare me a little bit was when Kevin McCarthy said, in a Republican House majority, we're not going to be writing blank checks for Ukraine. But the problem is, when you have a 2 Republican House majority, even if he attempted to whip that majority into order to stop the Biden administration for doing something, there's no way he could achieve that on Ukraine, which has so much bipartisan support. And it doesn't seem to be a winning issue. If there's anything running out of this midterms, being against aid to Ukraine isn't something that got you a lot of support in the United States.
I wholeheartly agree, but consider the timing, right? So we get this news today. They are having preliminary votes on speakership, right? So the Freedom Caucus announced today that they plan on making an objection to McCarthy's speakership, just to show that they have the leverage over him. He doesn't have a margin for error in terms of whipping votes. He's not very good at it compared to Pelosi. But if he wants to be speaker, that leverage goes both ways, doesn't it? Even though the majority of the Republican caucus supports providing, ongoing support to Ukraine, there is a vocal minority that is not interested in doing that. And he'll have to, if he wants the votes to be speaker, I wonder if people will play that leverage over him and be like, look, you want us to back you for speaker? We just get this, news report that there might be an Article 5 triggering because of 2 stray Russian missiles. So if you want our vote, you're going to have to commit to, I don't know, truncating the support to Ukraine. I don't know if that's possible, but that's kind of why I posed the question, because the timing is so bad. You know what I mean? For McCarthy and for Biden and for everybody else.
McCarthy is in a bad position right now because he's just in a weak political position. He's vulnerable. He might still end up being House Majority Leader because who's the other option really? I don't think anybody that has enough support behind him to become House Majority Leader and is instead of him. But
right.
I really don't think that this strike in Poland is going to send the message to Republicans, let's be weaker on Russia. If anything, it would, I think, send the message we have to be stronger on them because now they've crossed a line, right? And now we need to make sure that the message is sent that you can't kill citizens of NATO in NATO territory and then be rewarded with less aid to their military opponents. The message here is, oh, they killed NATO citizens, let's be chiller, let's reel it in and make sure we give Ukraine the least amount of tools possible to fight back against it. I think you would need to see a massive dovish change in the Republican Party, which might be true amongst certain figures in the party, but I don't think it's true amongst the majority of them. I can still think of people like Adam Kissinger and people like that who would very much fight against that.
Yeah, the Kinzinger's, he's on his way out, to your point. Then the other question becomes, though, so like 20 years ago, after 9/11, we saw in a international crisis, I think President Bush's approval rating was in like the 80s or 90s, right? I don't think that's possible now. I think like the domestic politics are so divisive. I cannot imagine, even if the Republican Party collectively chooses to continue supporting Ukraine, part of me feels that they will be inclined to do so in a way that doesn't look particularly supportive of Biden. I feel like they're going to try to split the difference, right? And maybe you agree or disagree, but if they choose to continue to support Biden's agenda with Ukraine, they're going to do it in a way that, they're not going to rally, but Mr. President, you're so great. We're rallying behind President Biden's leadership. Like, I feel like those platitudes and that rhetoric.
What would be a smart idea if they wanted to virtue signal, which is what this would end up being. But if they wanted to, they could just be like, "Wow, Biden's leadership got us 2 dead Polish people. Can you believe this? I can't. Wow, we need to be stronger on this issue. We need to show strength." And then they could do it from like an even more pro-Ukraine position. But I think that's more likely than them saying, "Wow, they broke NATO's borders. They broke Poland's borders. They killed NATO citizens. They obviously violated." This is a situation where Article 5 could unironically be called. We need to stand strong. I think is going to be more of the message sent.
Do you think they will do it in a way that that recognizes Biden as the leader of NATO and, encouraging conservative commentators and voters?
I don't think they're going to be nice to Biden. I don't think they're going to be like, Biden is the greatest leader ever. He's going to lead Poland into the glory age of reclaiming its rightful borders.
Right now, it feels like in American politics, the most important possible thing to ever keep in mind is to never give your political opponents wins ever.
Right.
Like, I think that's just like, even if there's like a common sense bill, like Democrats could pass a bill called like the guarantee babies aren't being raped at 2 years old bill, and Republicans would be like, okay, well, if you want to do that, you have to give us guns back. Like, it would be like
the burn pit.
They would, the burn pit stuff. Yeah.
Or they'd bitch that conservative or that Democrats didn't do it 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, but they'd always want something in exchange for like whatever it is that's being negotiated. Like, it always wants something in exchange, even for stuff that kind of has bipartisan support. That's what it feels like. But
I don't remember that, and like I think that's relatively new. I mean, I was 10 when 9/11 happened. I don't even know if Dylan was born yet, but I mean, like, this was,
It was 3 months old.
Well, there you go. So you should have an eidetic memory on this. But I seem to recall that Democrats were fairly, like, they were embracing that patriotic rhetoric. Like, it was, you were not in a good place to criticize President Bush after those planes hit the towers.
9/11 is always just going to be so special because, like, the United States and the most United States got attacked, right? Like, New York is like the most United States thing about the United States, right?
Yeah.
And New York got hit. So, of course, like, almost no matter what, like, people are gonna...
If baseball were a city, it would be New York. That's how American it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like it would be... I know Biden will probably try to court, like he always does, bipartisan support, but I guess it's just interesting. I predict that Republicans will be infinitely less likely to really try to rally behind him and do anything, like you said, to give him that could be interpreted as a political victory. Mm-hmm. Whereas I feel like 20 years ago, the calculus was different. But maybe because it was an actual domestic attack, 9/11, we were attacked. It wasn't an ally. Maybe that was also something that made it different. But anyway, I just wanted to pick your brain about that. So I'm going to dip, but nice to talk to you, lads. And hopefully we'll have a conversation again if we're not destroyed in nuclear hellfire.
Be careful, babe.
Awesome.
All right, see you guys. Bye.
So Dylan, real quick, I just saw a tweet saying that Article 4 will be triggered, likely, not Article 5.
So they're just gonna like consult with people about like the territorial integrity and stuff like that. Then.
Yeah, you know what I do think this might get them though? That fucking Western-controlled Air Force. F-16s.
I think it's. I don't know if it's gonna get them that. I think this is gonna get them a lot of anti-air because they're gonna see us like taking down these missiles as a priority moving forward. And I think it might get them like some of the more big ticket questions they've been asking about. Like, if the idea was, and this is what we were just talking about earlier, that we're withholding these long range missiles because they might hit Russian territory, and that would be such a provocation. But then Russia is launching missiles, and even if by accident, hitting Polish territory, breaking years of precedent that we haven't seen since since NATO was established. Like what's the argument now to stop from giving these
exactly
to Ukraine? So I think
it would be really shitty though, because like what happens if something happens to where like a
That's why I'm more
like what if like a Russian civilian airliner or some shit like in Iran or whatever. What if a Russian civilian airliner gets hit by like a U.S. like supplied like missile or something, right?
That is the main fear of the Biden administration, is the idea that if we give them these longer range missiles, that gives them more ability to strike deeper into Russia. And what if they use it to do something like that? I guess I would say it's not in their best interest. So I don't understand why they would do such a thing.
Yeah, of course it's not. But like, why even should they even have the capability to?
Well, the capability, it's not necessarily to give them the capability to do that. It's to give them the capability to strike deeper into Russian logistics down south in places in Crimea and Zaporozhia and Donetsk and Luhansk. It means that we can basically force their ammo depots to be further and further back behind enemy lines, which makes it harder for the Russians to supply their soldiers, which ended up being a disaster for them in places like Kherson. That was one of the main reasons they lost Kherson, was because of their piss poor logistics.
I'd feel more comfortable with us having Western controlled like third-party air support providing air protection than I would with them having the long-range missiles.
I doubt we're going to put our planes.
We're not. That's like the last. That's like nuclear levels of shit, right? If we are doing like no-fly zones, or if we have planes in areas, I think, right?
Yeah, I don't think we're doing that anytime soon. I think we wouldn't do that outside of like maybe something like that could happen once like the nuclear taboo has been broken, but that's kind of like uncharted territory.
Not true. We have charted it because we are the nukers.
Yes, we are the true nuker. Dude, I hate when every time somebody brings that up, though, because the problem is people are bringing that up as, see, it can happen. But the problem is the situation in 1945 and 2022 when it comes to the capability of nuclear weapons and who has them is so different. It's impossible to compare them.
No,
it's
yeah,
like
of course,
fighting with sticks to machine guns.
Yeah.
We were the true nukers. You know, there's people who don't believe those weapons exist. They're just fake.
Wouldn't surprise me. I've heard dumber things that people actually believe, so. There's still a lot of people that believe the earth is flat, believe it or not.
Still people support ye.
True.
Are you going to DebateCon?
Yeah, on the 18th. Are you going to be there?
Nope. What are you doing there? What you debating?
I don't know. Matt Dillahunty on the abortion argument for bodily autonomy, Nuance Bro on something, and I don't know, somebody else. I need to do research for that. I'll probably do it all tomorrow or the day after.
Got you.
Is Trump is supposed to announce he's running today, right?
Yeah, he's supposed to announce. You're right. I completely forgot. I was like, what am I going to do today? And all that question's answered. Oh, thank God. Jesus. Thank you, President Trump. Patriot. Patriots are in control.
God, the poor.
He was right, man.
Never mind.
Dude, have you seen the polling data that came out after?
For the swing towards DeSantis?
Yeah, fucking 23 points. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I heard the polling data is down 2 points.
Thank goodness. I think people are jumping the gun on the DeSantis thing. I mean, there was a lot of people that Trump, went head to head with in the Republican primary that he knocked down. Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Chris Christie, so many people. Jeb Bush, who used to be the governor of Florida, moderately popular governor from Florida, who had a political legacy, dynasty, and all the donors behind him, fell flat. Now, like Ron DeSantis obviously has different mannerisms and a different skill set than Jeb Bush. It's a different political environment compared to 2015 to 2022, 2024. But I think a lot of people are jumping the gun a little bit on Ron DeSantis. This is the weakest Trump has been, but I think some people are kind of treating this like it's done and over.
I think the problem is DeSantis is getting stronger and stronger. He's proving himself. He's relevant. He's been doing well. He just proved himself in a recent election. And what has Trump done? complain every single fucking day about his fucking election. That's all he fucking does.
That is his biggest hold.
He's become such a fucking loser. He has been for years. He just can't think of anything else besides crying about his precious election.
Here's a question: If somebody put a gun to your head and said, "Who's going to be the Republican nominee in 2024?" Who would you say?
I don't know. I mean, the nominee. At this point, the nominee probably maybe DeSantis, but I still feel like Trump is going to run independent. If DeSantis wins, I think Trump would just run independent. I think he'd be like, yeah, fuck you, I'm running anyway.
That'd be so glorious.
I'm Donald Trump.
I still don't know if DeSantis can really put up with like a broadcasted live on TV Trump just constantly hammering him the way Trump did in 2016. Like, I do think the 2020 election and him being a denier and continuing this stuff is sad. It's pathetic, and it doesn't win over independents. I think that's a big reason why Carrie Lake, Dr. Oz, Doug Mastriano, a lot of these candidates that Donald Trump basically handpicked in the primary to win over moderates, a big reason why they lost was because they were concentrating on that issue when people wanted to hear about, like tax relief, or wanted to hear about like how are they gonna like fix inflation. You heard a lot of complaining about inflation, but not a lot of like alternatives and how to fix it. And so I do think that's the thing really holding Trump back. And the worse he does in the polling number against DeSantis, these scandals that are hitting him, I don't know if you saw recently, but it was revealed that the reason he was storing those documents at his home was not to sell them, not to like sell out the country. He just wanted it because it was cool. He
you
just
know
thought
what?
it would be
Honest
cool.
to God, dude, that's just not even really that surprising to me. I'm like, that's not at all surprising to me.
Isn't that fantastic though? He just wanted to basically like have Sean Hannity over and be like, "Hey, you want to see some launch codes?"
Yeah.
Which I gotta say, it is a flex. It is a flex. I understand it, but holy shit, is that dangerous?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's gonna be harder for him to like survive these political scandals when there's not gonna be as many people coming out to defend him because they've been given another option. And I think that's gonna be interesting, seeing if he can deal with the with these types of scandals like he did in 2015 with the grab him by the pussy. But that was already after he was chosen the nominee too. So I wonder if like in a heated primary he can survive deal with all those scandals as well. Yeah. Trump is definitely in the weakest political position he's been since he was elected the nominee in 2015.
Yeah. And he's just getting weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
I mean, what would be nice though is if, DeSantis does hold up, he does get the nomination, Trump's ego kicks in like we think it will, and then he just splits the hell out of the vote. There's going to be, I don't think it.
There's no way he would accept a VP pick, would he?
No way.
No.
VP,
no way.
Absolutely not.
So if he does run, it's almost guaranteed Republicans lose, right? Like,
yes,
there's no way
it would
the vote doesn't
I mean,
split.
the Party's already fucked, but yeah, it would be catastrophic. For sure.
Do you think DeSantis? How do you think DeSantis would do against Trump in a debate, or do against Trump's onslaught of attacks? Like, I don't know if you heard the stories, like the reports, but apparently there's one report coming out that Donald Trump prepared a dossier of information against Ron DeSantis. Some of it included a story, and I don't know if this is true, a story of Ron DeSantis hiring a prostitute to spank him with a magazine with his own face on it, right?
Jesus.
Like, if that's the type of stuff Trump's willing to go down in the dirt on, like, do you think DeSantis can cope with that well?
I mean, it depends on how true it is, right? I have no idea. I don't know, yeah. Who knows? But, yeah. Trump, yeah, the Republican Party earned it. This is their problem now.
Bro, this is, they did kind of swallow the poison, and now they're complaining about it. This is great if you're a Democrat, though. This is fantastic.
True.
You're saying something, Lycan?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, to be fair to them, they probably thought this was the golden ticket. Like, there was no one like Trump. Trump was going to lead them into the promised land.
Someone in YouTube chat called Voluntarist Girl said, I lost the message. They said they debated you on whether or not tax was theft, and you lost the debate, Dylan. Is that true?
Wow, I can't believe it. She's called me out again. Dude, I don't know what. Every once in a while, she'll pop up in my chat, and then she'll spaz out, and then she'll leave. I don't know what's up with her.
Did you have a debate over it?
I think we did like 2 years ago. I don't really remember.
Damn.
But I probably lost. Sure, why not?